Hello. So we are up to chapter 15 of Amy Sparks' The Tower at the End of Time. Remember, it's the second book in our trilogy. So chapter 15, and we're up to the contestant. The competition. All contestants take your positions. Take your positions, all contestants. 9 saw Flabbergast's indigo hat move forwards and out of sight. All around, people pushed and shoved for a better view of the arena. Flabby said, "That's a fool," Spoon grumbled into 9's ear. "Ugh, of all the wizards in all the realms, I had to choose that one." "Yes, you did," something inside 9 just snapped. "Because of all the wizards in all the realms, he was the only one who offered you a lift when you needed it." 9 thought of her former life, barely surviving as a pickpocket. The house had been there for her when she needed it too. The house and the strange collection of characters who lived inside it. Spoon frowned so hard, his bushy eyebrows met in the middle. "Come on," said 9, grabbing Eric's hand. Using her satchel, she bashed her way through the last few layers of jabbering witches and wizards, tugging the heavy troll behind her. The image of a downcast but determined Flabbergast kept flashing in her mind. She would not let him face his important, if bizarre, trial on his own. There was the indigo hat. She gave a final push, and there they broke through. The pleasant bunting began to vanish, melting into a waist-higher barrier of red fire to keep the spectators back away from the pitch. On the ground was a large, fiery hopscotch grid, every line spitting golden sparks threateningly up into the air. They had ended up by the number 10. Nearby was the raised table with 3 seats. On these 3 seats, on one sat an old wizard in a blue cloak, jiggling excitedly on his chair, nervously twitching his long grey beard. In the middle sat the message witch, still staring blankly ahead and clutching the huge scroll. And on the final seat sat Ophelia, the unpredictable, and her eyes connected with 9's. She smiled really slowly. 9 tore her eyes away. Flabbergast was making his way down to the other end of the pitch. Lined up in a row was an amber-cloaked witch with elaborately plaited black hair and an expression that could probably kill at 10 paces, maybe 8 on a good day. Gazillion the Unstoppable, with his mane of blonde green hair and an expression of contempt for the world, and joining them was Flabbergast the Unworthy, with his indigo pyjamas and an expression that suggested he wished he'd caught up with the toilet before he actually left the house. Gazillion smiled, a really thin, determined smile, and he raised one of his feet. Stamp, 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 stamp. A deathly silence fell on the crowd. The amber-cloaked witch lifted her foot, and she joined him. Stamp, 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 stamp. Looking terrified, Flabbergast joined them. Stamp, 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 stamp. Every witch, every wizard began to stamp. Stamp, 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 stamp. The echoing sound sent chills down 9's spine. Eric's hand tightened around hers, and Spoon edged closer to her head. Stamping picked up speed. Stamp, 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 until Ophelia the Unpredictable suddenly jumped up from her chair, and the crowd fell motionless. Ophelia threw her arms wide and bellowed, We hear your call. Melinda the Undaunted, Gazillion the Unstoppable, and Flabbergast the Unworthy. Let the championships begin." Melinda, Gazillion, and Flabbergast sprang into action. They all threw something pebble-like towards the grid. Melinda's landed on the number 7, and Gazillion's and Flabbergast's pebbles both landed on the number 10. The golden flames turned to a cold blue, and rose higher. Melinda was the first to hop over the fiery blue line, landing with 1 foot on the number 1. "Hurry up," growled Gazillion behind Melinda on the grass. He glared at Flabbergast, and Flabbergast glared back at him. The crowd held their breath. Melinda was still balancing on one leg. Then she jumped with both feet, landing astride the blue fire on numbers 2 and 3. The lines surrounding these numbers suddenly twisted and crackled. Melinda looked down at her feet, watching and then waiting. Out of the lines, blue fire twisted and swirled and lengthened, creating a long neck with a dragon's head at the end of it. Flabbergast and Gazillion glared at each other again. Then both hopped onto the number 1, barely fitting on together. They grasped each other's cloaks, each shoving and wobbling on one leg, trying to push the other off the square. The blue fire dragon threw back its head, opened its blue flaming mouth, and then plunged down towards Melinda. With a lightning response, Melinda pointed her fingertips at the dragon's head. Amber threads shot from her fingers and wrapped themselves around the dragon's mouth. As the creature writhed and shook its head, Melinda hopped one-footed onto the number 4. A towering Jack-in-the-Box in a crimson cloak and pointed hat popped out of square number 4. It was wearing white gloves and its arms stuck out to each side from underneath the cloak. Its mouth was closed but grinning as it rocked back and forth over Melinda, and she leaned left and then she leaned right to try and avoid it, wobbling on one leg still. The crowd gasped. "You know," I whispered to Eric and Spoon, "I have a feeling that Wizard Hopscotch isn't quite what I thought it was going to be." She glanced nervously at Flabbergast. Still wobbling, Gazillion gave Flabbergast a sneaky grin and then shot a mauve sparks at Flabbergast's feet, making him stand on one foot. As Flabbergast tried not to wobble outside the grid, Gazillion jumped ahead to numbers 2 and 3, his brown-booted feet astride the blue flames. "Oh, no, you don't," said Flabbergast behind Gazillion, grabbing his cloak. Gazillion roared as the pajamaed wizard pulled him backwards. He twisted around towards Flabbergast, his fingertips sparkling, but at that moment the dragon broke the amber cords fastening its mouth. Gazillion whirled back around and shot mauve sparkling threads at the dragon, which wrapped around its eyes like a blindfold this time. Jack-in-the-Box bobbed backwards and forwards, staring with dark, glassy eyes. 9 gasped as it opened its mouth, slowly revealing sharp, pointed teeth. Wobbling wildly, Melinda shot amber threads from her fingertips towards the Jack-in-the-Box, missing each time. The blindfolded dragon thrashed its head as Flabbergast and Gazillion wrestled. Then both hopscotch creatures dived down towards Melinda at the same time. The crowd gasped again. The witch screeched as the Jack-in-the-Box reached her first. She desperately shot amber strands at his mouth, which then changed his teeth to bubbles. Melinda kicked furiously, popping each tooth with her boots. But the Jack-in-the-Box brought forward its white-gloved arms. It grasped Melinda and it tossed her outside the grid. She landed with a thud on the grass. Gazillion and Flabbergast, the latter's head underneath Gazillion's armpit, both froze for a moment. The crowd gave a riotous round of applause as Melinda lifted herself up to bow to the judges and then slumped back down onto the ground. The crimson-cloaked Jack-in-the-Box kept grinning to itself as it shrunk back into its square. "Hopscotch bad," said Eric, looking at 9 with worried eyes. "Flabby die." I don't know," said 9, and she stared as the dragon's blindfold dissolved into mauve sparks. It reared its head and then came crashing down towards the wizards. So Eric really worried. Could Flabbergast die in this competition? Could he turn into the skeleton that we now know was once a wizard and will have 2 skeletons in the house? Who knows? Make a prediction. Next time will be chapter 16.